Hello everyone and welcome. I am really excited to share this interview which I did with Stephanie Cork from Wild Remedy. I had a wonderful time chatting to her on the subject of homeopathy in dogs, and I really hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. So much great information shared about this amazing modality which offers us another gentle but effective way to support our dogs. Wild Remedy is the much loved fur baby of Stephanie Cork. She provides animal homeopathic consults and works closely with animal owners to help them achieve a healthy and balanced lifestyle for their pets. As an avid dog owner and animal lover, Stephanie understands that our animals are such an important part of our lives and family, which is why she works with you, supports you, and educates you on how homeopathy can be effectively used to help bring your animal's health back into balance and harmony. Stephanie offers online consultations, and you can connect with her using the contact information listed below this video.
So welcome everybody, welcome from all around the world. Really excited about my special guest today all the way from New Zealand. I'm with Stephanie Cork. So welcome Stephanie, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, great. And our topic, as I've already mentioned in the introduction, our topic today is homeopathy for dogs, but we're going to talk specifically about dogs. And yeah, so let's get stuck in, Steph. So please tell us a little bit about your background, about yourself. How did you get into homeopathy for animals?
So it all started probably about 18 years ago. So my journey with homeopathy has been quite a long process. And it started with my first Siberian Husky called Coda. And I couldn't get him into a vet. He would go into the consult room, he would hide under the table, he would hide behind the chair. I couldn't actually get the vet to examine him. So I put some feelers out there and just said, does anyone know of a vet that is really good with dogs? And a friend approached me and she said, yep, this guy's great. He's a holistic veterinarian. See what you think and go along. And I sort of thought to myself, I don't care if he's the man on the moon. I've got to find a vet. Like my dog was just so extreme. And so we went in and we had a consult, and he was a homeopathic vet. Mm-hmm. So that began my journey. And even though he was a qualified veterinarian, he treated more on the holistic side than the traditional medicine side. And so over the years, through 3 cruciate ligaments, arthritis, abscesses, you name it, we treated it with homeopathy.
Wow.
So yeah, it was amazing. And my dogs would literally run into his clinic. They had no fear. I don't know whether it was his energy, or he didn't actually even examine the dogs. He would talk to me and he would say, okay, Steph, who have we got today? He wouldn't even know which dog I had in the clinic. And I was like, really? And he would say to me, what's going on? So we'd have a chat and I'd say, well, I'm seeing this, or he's acting a bit strange. And he would say, well, what do you mean by strange? So that's when I would describe his behaviour, which was out of character for him. Mm-hmm. So then Brett the vet would prescribe a remedy based on everything I had said, based on his mental, emotional and physical symptoms. Mm-hmm. And so this continued on for years, probably 10 years, and all of my dogs have been treated homeopathically. And then one day I saw advertised a first aid course for animals doing homeopathy. And I thought, perfect. So I went along and did a day course. Well, the day course turned into 4 years of study. So yeah, so here I am today, and I just qualified last year over COVID. And so it's been 4 years of study and learning about myself and learning about animals and behavior. And I used to train and race sled dogs over in Alaska. I spent 6 months over there. And a lot of kennels actually used homeopathy because in races they are drug tested, but homeopathy is not a drug. So yeah, so there was a lot of homeopathy used over there as well, and with amazing benefits. So yeah, and just how it works and the benefits that I was seeing in my own dogs and how natural it is, just inspired me to go, you know what, our animals need this. And so yeah, 4 years later.
Wow. Well, congratulations. Well done.
Yeah,
well done.
Thank you. So it was a huge journey, but and I sort of try to educate the owners as well that homeopathy is their journey as well, because they learn so much about their own animal along the process. And I think with dogs, they're so in tune with us that homeopathy can actually really benefit them on a behavioural sense as well. So a lot of the dogs that I see, the owners are sort of imprinting some of their anxiety and things like that onto the animal. So it's fascinating. It really is.
It is, isn't it? So let's dive in there, because I love that. You know, a lot of the people, our audience watching this today, will know, you know, through their own dogs, how our dogs mirror our behavior, and how our own energy, or energy in the family, or energy in the environment can affect them. So but tell me how, let's just go back for those people who don't know homeopathy or don't know how it works really. How does it work then? What has it got to do with energy?
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded question, and I think whatever homeopath you talk to, we all have different kind of versions of it. So I'll talk about my version. And everything is made up of energy, and homeopathy is made up of animals, minerals, plants, the sun, the moon, and that all has an energy to it as well. So we actually take pieces, you know, of a plant. We might take a bit of the stem of a plant or the flower off a plant, and we'll dilute it and shake it so many times. And this process is done numerous times, so that basically that substance does not exist. The only thing that really exists is the energy. So what I'm doing is, when I do a consult, I'm matching the energy of that remedy to that animal. And when they take that substance or that energy, it's helping their own energy vibrate to a higher level, bringing them back into balance.
So they basically resonating with that energy. So you finding something on a similar resonance to them, or to help it raise their energy, or
yeah. So the homeopathic remedy needs to be vibrating at a higher level, and that sort of pushes the animal's energy back up. And in theory, we all have the ability to heal ourselves, and so do our animals. So by raising their frequency or vibration, it's bringing everything back into balance. And when I'm treating animals, sometimes it can work so quickly, you can actually see the animal sigh of relief, or they'll do a yawn, or there'll be some kind of sort of outlet, or they may go away and have a good sleep. So their body is shutting everything down that they don't need in order to heal. And then quite often owners will say to me, I've got a completely different dog. And I'm like, oh God, because that's quite a hard case, because they can actually be themselves. You know, whatever has impacted on them has been stripped away. And so, for example, if we look at grief or something, our animals feel grief, and they're picking up on our grief too. So we would treat the grief with a remedy that is best suited to that animal. And then it won't take away their pain or their mourning, but it will help them, you know, support them through that whole process. And it helps them get through that process quicker, and they don't have any scars from it. You know, they've transitioned from where they were into a better place. So I know when my last dog passed, I gave myself Ignatia and Willow, my dog, Ignatia, which is a very good grief remedy, and from moving on from loss. And I think if I hadn't have taken that, I wouldn't have moved on. And when our dogs depart, and you've got other dogs left in the pack, the whole pack structure changes. Because the energy has changed in that hierarchical system. And I know that with homeopathy, it helped support me and Willow create a new pack structure. The dynamics definitely changed, but we didn't have any behavioural issues, because sometimes when a pack leader does pass, you get a lot of friction within the hierarchy. We had none of that. It was a very easy transition when I look back now.
So I love that. So if I can just reframe that. So basically what you're doing there is, the homeopathy is helping you, is supporting the animal and person through a certain experience. So it's not like it's treating symptoms. Again, like Western medicine, we don't treat symptoms. We say these are the symptoms, therefore let's help the body to support its own healing on an emotional, spiritual, and physical level.
Physical. Yep, correct.
And help them to release what they need to, so that they can then move on. Which I think is...
Yeah. And quite often a dog won't, they can be a bit removed. Like when I do a consult, I'll sit with the owner for an hour and a half and we go through everything. We go through diet, bowel motions, literally everything, because what I'm looking for is something that's very unique to that dog. Something that you wouldn't see in another dog, kind of thing. So for example, I might have 2 dogs that have got arthritis. So same degenerative disease, but one might be better for motion and better for the cold. The other dog might be better for the warmth and is worse on motion. So they would have 2 completely different remedies. Even though they have the same disease, they react very differently to what that disease does to their body. So I'm looking for those little differences that are really going to help me pinpoint the right remedy for that dog. So there's a bit of...
That's great as well, Steph, because I think that so often, and I was one of those people who just sort of had a couple of remedies on my shelf, sort of common remedies. Oh, that one's good for arthritis. Let's just, give him that one. That one's good for this. Let's give him that. But as you say, you're, doing an actual consult. You are going really into depth into that specific individual and taking everything into account on a holistic view before you can find the right remedy for that specific thing.
Correct. Yeah. So we do treat acutely, which is, if they've just, a bit of vomiting or diarrhea, then I treat that acutely. But with chronic, it has been something that's been going on for a long time. So there's been a build-up of things that have gone on. And it's quite interesting because when I talk to the owner in my head, or when I come back to actually put everything together, I do a timeline. So this happened in this month, this year, and this happened, and you can actually see a pattern of what's actually happened in the dog's life and what could have triggered it. So it's actually really quite fascinating to see how certain things can affect dogs in certain ways, and they all react very, very differently to different things that are going on. So and then we look at the environment as well, because I can give a remedy for allergies to grass and things like that. But if that stays in the environment, that problem is going to keep coming up again and again and again. So we do try to remove the things that we can, if possible. Some things we can't, especially these days. It's pretty hard to remove things from the environment. But the probably cleaner we can make the environment and the diet and things like that, the much happier and healthier that the dog is going to be.
Yeah, 100%. So just going back quickly to something else you said there, which rang a bell, is when we, let's say somebody comes to you and there's several layers, like I know in behavior, there's several layers. And when somebody comes to me with a behavior problem, we probably got several layers happening underneath that has led to that point.
Yes.
So how do you know where to start? I mean, let's say the dog has got, as you say, might have allergies, might have behavioral problems, might have a huge array of things. Where do you even start? How would you even, like you say, you would plot that all out, but where do you start? How do you choose a starting point?
I always say to the owner, what is top of mind for you? What can you live with at the moment and what can't you? And what would you like me to focus on? And it's quite interesting because sometimes I'll get asked to do a consult because the dog's, having skin allergies. But then when I talk to them, they're really pressing another area of the dog that is bothering more than the skin issues. So that's when I will change focus and say, right, well, what do you want to focus on first? Because they have to live with it and they're dealing with it every day, whereas I'm not. And sometimes I might give a constitutional remedy, which is basically a remedy that is based around their physical, mental and emotional symptoms. And then I might give them a remedy specifically for grass issues or, things like that, or skin issues. 9 times out of 10, I can get a remedy that will do the whole lot. And we'll just work our way through that. And then I normally give it a couple of weeks and I'll go and do a follow-up to see what's changed and what hasn't changed. Because like us, I only treat what the dog will show me.
Mm-hmm.
If he's not showing me a certain symptom, I'm not even gonna look at it. I'm only concerned with what I'm seeing right then and there in the consult.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I will treat, because that is what the dog is comfortable showing me.
Mm-hmm.
You could go deeper, but whether you get a response from that or not, or the dog might not be ready for that remedy yet.
Mm-hmm.
And like us, will only show what we want to show.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we're more comfortable, they keep removing the layers. I always liken them to like an onion. The first layer you're treating may be quite a superficial layer, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only going to show you this because that's what I feel like. I don't feel comfortable. And then you start getting down to the layers. And then, you know, sometimes I'll go back and I'll go, wow, there you are. You can actually see the real animal without all of the baggage, I guess you could say.
Yes.
And it's beautiful, you know, and bit by bit you see them reveal themselves until you're like, oh, wow, I can see who you are, and aren't you beautiful?
Wow,
You
wow,
know?
that's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
It is.
And similar to the zoopharmacognosy, which I do, is that, you know, is, as you say, the animal will present something at that moment, but it's up to them to peel back those layers. There's all sorts of things of what they need to work with right now, maybe different to what we think they need to work with.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes the animal won't even look at me, and I'm like, there's a cue. They're not interested in me. They're like, oh no, or they'll move away, or they don't want me to examine them. And it could be due to pain or lack of confidence. So
or prior experience with other vets or something. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So everything I see, I'm observing, and I kind of put it down to, I'm a detective. I'll go in there and I'm like scanning the room, and and just seeing, how even the interaction with the owner can give me a lot of cues. Interaction with other people in the house, or even other dogs. And I've been in situations where someone has called me up and said, look, I'm having behavioural issues. Can you come and help? Yep, sure. I'll come and have a look. And I'll have a look at the dog they've asked me to look at, but that's not the problem. The other dog's the problem. So it's the whole dynamics, which is actually really quite interesting.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I just love this so much. So like you said, I mean, sometimes you can have an immediate effect. So you can literally give, as you say, sometimes one dose and you will see an immediate change. Other times, let's say I have a consult with you and you say, let's try this remedy. And I give a dose or a 2 dose or whatever you tell me to do. And I do that and I don't see any changes. What does that mean? Does that mean it's the wrong remedy? Does it mean it needs a longer time? How would you assess that? Or do we change it, or what do you...
I try not to change too quickly. One thing that homeopathy has taught me is patience. And I am not a patient person. I'm like, snapping the fingers, like tapping the foot, come on. So homeopathy has been a real journey in patience. And I watch and I wait. And normally, if there has been no change, I'll give it a little bit longer. And if still nothing has changed, I will revisit the case and see if I've missed something. Even if there's one small change, like I'll go through the owner with a list. How's he sleeping? How's his behavior? What's happening with this? What's happening with that? And if there's even been one change, I'm on the right path. And because some dogs are quite chronically ill, like I'm treating some dogs that have had 15 years of a lot of things happening. That's not going to happen overnight. So it is a long process. And as the layers keep being removed, the remedy changes all the time. I had a dog, he was 7 months, but he had skin issues for all of his life. He was basically born with skin issues. So he wasn't a quick fix, but he kept me on my toes every day. His symptoms were changing, and I was like, oh my gosh, he responded beautifully to homeopathy. It was a struggle to keep up with how he was moving through, moving through things. And so that was really beautiful to watch. And new symptoms were cropping up, showing me, okay, we've moved on, we're on to this now. These are the symptoms, so you need another remedy. So every time a symptom changes, I'm thinking, do we need to move to another remedy, or do we just need to wait and let it run its course? And again, that's always individual as well. And it's tough. Like I'm walking into the unknown, and I'm moving as the animal moves. So it's kind of like a quick step, I guess. It's a dance, I guess you could say, which I step on the toes.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is, you're moving with the animal at their pace.
Yeah.
And the remedy can change, but if there has been no even a minor change, then I would revisit the case because I've missed something. And sometimes you can only do what you can do with the information that you're given, and sometimes what I see and what the owner sees can be quite different. And that's where the behavioural background comes into play, because some people think, or they may say my dog's anxious, but it's not. There's a disharmony in the pack, and if you can sort of fix things within the pack, then that behaviour is going to go away. And I will give a remedy to help support the dog through that. But sometimes there are little things that may need changing as well, just in the behaviour in the household and things like that as well.
So, Steph, something that we chatted about previously, and something that I feel very strongly about over the past few weeks and months actually, is people really getting to know their dogs, taking the time out to really observe and become, because as you say, these are the details that are so critical for you to make a correct analysis. And with people just saying, just labeling my dog is angry or anxious, or my dog is whatever, my dog is aggressive, whatever the case is, they're just labeling it without really looking at when does that happen, how does it happen, what is the situation, what other dogs or environment is maybe causing that, etc. So it's really taking the time, and I think it's so important. It's like getting to know a member of your family.
It is.
What is that person? Who is that person? What makes them tick? What what happens? And it's really, as you said, that is the key for you to help, and somebody like me as well, from a behavior point of view. If we have all this information, that's when we can really start working together and start supporting the person and their dog. But when we just have a one-off sort of symptom here, we know that they're complex beings just like ourselves.
They are.
And the more information, so like you said, detective work, that's what we want.
I mean, half the time in some consults, I don't even talk. I'm just writing about what the owner is telling me. And I love discharges, bowel movements, vomiting, discharges from the eyes or the nose, because in homeopathy we love discharges because it's everything coming out. So with normal medicine everything is suppressed, but we don't want that. We want everything to come out. So I'm always asking, what are their bowel motions like, what color, firm, soft, everything. When they do have diarrhea, is it really spluttering? Is it, what's the smell? And people are like, they look at me as if I'm nuts, and I'm like, this is your chance to talk about things that you don't normally talk about. Nothing is taboo when it comes to the consults. I want to know everything, even if they don't think it's important. It probably is. So
that's sorry, just to go there back as that, please, that is so important. I think that's a point that most people don't realize, is when your dog is ill, let's say they have a bit of diarrhea, or they start having running from the eyes, or they have a lot of gas, or whatever it is, all those symptoms, and we think, oh, the dog is ill, and the first thing you do is go, when your dog has diarrhea, they go and get something to stop the diarrhea.
Yes, don't.
And it's just such the wrong thing to do, because as you said, and we need to let the animal, the system take its course. It's trying to get rid of something.
So
Can we support the dog during that process, rather than trying to stop the diarrhea?
And I'm kind of like, great, that the dog's system is doing exactly what it should be doing. It's eliminating toxins. Don't suppress it, because it's got to go somewhere. So it's going to come out or somewhere else, or it's going to get worse, and then then you've got a whole multitude of problems. So, and sometimes I feel a little bit blasé, because people are like, they panic, and I'm like, that's all right. If they're continuously vomiting, then yes, go to the vet. There's obviously an issue. Colour can tell you so much about vomiting and diarrhea. It really, really can. You know, so people need to not be afraid of observing their dog. You know, when you go pick up the poo, have a look at it. It's not a biggie. People probably look at me and go, "Oh, there's that crazy dog lady," you know. But it tells you a lot. It really, really does, and it will tell you if your dog is healthy or not. Is the stomach working properly? You know, yeah. So our dogs tell us a lot, but we don't look at things.
We need to just be more observant of all of those little things that they're giving us all the time.
Correct. And it's interesting because a healthy dog should not have any discharge from their eyes, and people don't realize that. They're like, "Oh, my dog's healthy," and I look at the dog going, "Well, actually it's not really. There's a lot of stuff coming out, so there's something going on inside that we need to address." So but I think today's healthy is very different to what healthy was considered, like, you know, even 5 years ago.
Sure.
So, you know, things are changing. So,
and things like, I mean, like you said, a simple thing like as you say, a lot of dogs have those weepy eyes, and they're almost born with it, you know, well, not born with it, but, you know, they have it really since young puppy. And so they just think it's, oh, well, it's that breed or whatever always has that. But it could be then a genetic something that it's bringing with, of course.
That's right.
And the other thing is breath, dog breath. I mean, I remember somebody saying, "Oh, but every dog's breath stinks." It's not true. The dog's breath shouldn't stink. And if it is stinking, again, then, you know, it may be guts, coming from teeth. It could be coming from all sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I always say to people, if there is an odor,
or or skin odor, body odor as well.
Yeah,
you know, it doesn't have
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, our dogs are showing us every day whether they're healthy or not, but we're just not in tune, or we don't think, or we don't question. And that's the other thing I like to educate on. Question. No question is a stupid question. You know, it's question why you're being given this, why, you know, the vet thinks this, or even why as a homeopath am I recommending this? Question, because that's how you're going to learn, and that's, you know, it's your right to question. You know, because this is your dog's health, and I look at my dog and she trusts me to do the right thing by her, and that's a lot of weight, because I'm making decisions on her behalf, and I think that's becoming more apparent in the world that we live in today. I want to do the right thing by her. So I'm like, question. You know, you really have to. Yeah,
that's amazing. Definitely, more questioning, more taking responsibility for knowing your own dog and understanding your own dog, I think, is definitely the way we're going. So, Steph, something I absolutely am passionate about as well is going forward is working with professionals as a team, because as we know, we're talking about holistic, we're talking about prior, you know, a lot of dogs have come from backgrounds from rescue situations, etc. So they have a lot of history, perhaps some trauma, or very often trauma that's gone through in the past. So we're looking at a holistic picture here. So when people may come to me for a behavior problem, I know that again, there could be so many things involved there. So it's looking at the whole. So for me, working as a professional with somebody else and other professionals like yourself, together to find clues that we can help the dog holistically, because that's where I think you're really going to get to see the good results, to see the good outcomes. When we start looking at treating this. So looking forward to working together with you going forward.
That'll be fun.
So that we can do this. So tell the folks a little bit about how you work, Steph, because obviously you're in New Zealand. I have an audience from around the world. So if they would want to work with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so all they need to do is just contact me on Facebook or on my website, and what I can do is set up a consultation, and international I can do as well. So the time zones we'll just figure out. So I do a lot of consults via Zoom, and if it's a skin issue or a behavioural issue, I will actually get the owner to video. I'll get them to video the dog in action, the behaviour that's you know that they want to work on, or I'll get them to send through photos of the skin issues, or even the eyes. You know, anything that they think is important. I do get some quite explicit pictures, depending on what's going on. We even have bowel motions, and I'm kind of like, yep.
Take that.
Yeah, it's quite a hard case. Yeah, but that gives me an idea of what's actually going on. So and quite often the dog will even sit in on the consultation, which is quite cool. It's quite a hard case. Yeah. So, and that tells me a lot too.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's quite a hard case. So even though I can't be in the room with them, it doesn't seem to make any difference.
Right.
So and all it is a general chit chat, just like how we're talking now. I'll say, you know, what's going on, what would you like help with, and then it's just a general conversation about the dog. And who doesn't want to talk about their dog?
Exactly. Who doesn't love sharing about their dogs?
Exactly.
Okay, so I'll put your contact details obviously below this video so people can get in touch with you, and I certainly I'm going to do a consult with Stephanie as well, with my own dogs, with Layla, certainly. But before we go, I would love you to share a couple of, or one or more, if you can, case studies. I mean, what kind of things have you treated, or what kind of things have you seen remarkable results on, or not so remarkable? Tell us what's something that you want to share with us.
Yeah. So because of the Privacy Act, I can't say like names or anything like that. But yeah, I think the turning point for me with homeopathy was with my second dog, Libby, and she was 15 years old. I got her at 2 years old, lots of behavioural issues. And as she got older, she started suffering from ear infections. And I was in the study one day, and Willow started barking, and I was like, what is she barking at? And so I came outside to see what all the ruckus was about. And I saw Libby leaning against a tree, and she couldn't balance herself. And luckily, I knew that from previous ear infections that when she had an ear infection, she would just fall over. There was no smell to her ears, or there was no itching or rubbing. She would just fall over. And I thought, oh, God, she's got an ear infection. But I had never seen her in that bad state before. And I must admit, I panicked, and I was flipping around like, you know, as you do. And all of a sudden, a remedy kept on popping into my head. And I thought, oh, God. And I thought, I don't know why. And I thought, you know what? I was at my wit's end, and I thought, I'm going to try it. So I gave her the remedy. And without a lie, within not even a minute, she was standing up and walking around. And I was kind of like, yeah, it actually blew my mind. I was like, wow. And I knew how powerful homeopathy was. But to actually see that was beautiful. And another example was when I got completely blown away again was when he was a puppy, and I think he was only had just had his first vaccinations, and he had a reaction to it, and he was paralyzed. So the owner contacted me. They were doing all the vet treatments and doing massage and things like that as well, just to try to get everything moving again. And she brought him around here, and he was such a beautiful, beautiful puppy. And I just said to her, I'm not sure if I can help, but let's just see what we can do. And I gave him just one dose of a remedy for ill effects of vaccination, and I thought I'll give it a shot. And he just fell asleep. I had him on a mat on the floor, and he fell asleep, and it was such a deep sleep. And I said to the owner, I said, does he normally sleep this deep? And she said no. And with homeopathy, when they go into a deep sleep, their whole body is conserving all the energy and going into healing. And she said that she went away, and he was going for a massage later that afternoon. And she said she could actually see him putting his front paws, trying to leverage himself up, which he had never done before. And he is now up and walking. So it's it's a very powerful, beautiful modality. And I'm very lucky and very grateful that I found it, or homeopathy found me. Do
you find that, for instance, because we're so energetically connected to our dogs, that it has some of the progress or the healing needs to, the owner really has to be on board. The guardian has to be on board with this, and supportive of the healing process. I mean, I know it's our individual bodies and we are the ones who decide if we want to heal and how. But how closely would you say that the owner needs to be on board, or could they be a complete skeptic and it's still?
Oh, a lot of people are. They don't know what homeopathy is. They don't care. They're just like, fix my dog, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. But yeah, just the whole, just how it is to me, it's fascinating, and what it can do is absolutely amazing. And I think used correctly, it can be a beautiful modality. And I've used homeopathy in conjunction with acupuncture and things like that. And again, that's all energy. You're moving around energy to where it needs to go. So to me, anything energetic definitely has its place with animals, because they are an energetic being, and they're in the moment, whereas we're not. So I think they're kind of a little bit more heightened than us in the spiritual world, I guess you could say. They're probably a little bit more closer to whatever you like to call it. So I think their influence with anything energetic is a lot more probably quicker than what we as humans are. And I did a homeopathic consult with a human homeopath because I was like, I've got baggage, as we all do. And I thought, you know what?
We all have.
And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go and have a consult, because I can't be a homeopath if I haven't, gone down the track. And it blew my mind. And it was interesting. And I had things cropping up from 15, 16 years ago when I had car accidents and things like that, that the remedy I was given moved me through all of those things that I hadn't completely healed from, I guess you could say. So it was interesting, and I thought,
that circles back beautifully to what we said at the beginning, that if you can get it early, when you have some kind of a trauma or an injury or whatever, the homeopathy can support you getting through that, and without leaving the scars and the baggage and the trapped energy, which is going to come out later as something else,
because basically it lies there, and it I mean, it could be dormant, but it's going to manifest.
Yes.
And anything can trigger that, like any trauma, even a cold or an abscess or anything can actually trigger that off. So to me, prevention is really key as well. And I know with Willow, she had to go to the vet probably a couple of years ago. She tore one of her nails, and it was half in and half out, so it needed to be surgically removed. So I treated her homeopathically till we got to the vet, and then when I got her home, I treated her homeopathically again for pain, and also to bring her out of the sedation. So and that supported her through that whole process. And happy camper. You would never know that she'd been knocked out, had a little bit of an operation, and drugged out to the max kind of thing, and just homeopathy supported her in each of those steps.
So I think that's again, that leads to another one. So as you say, I mean, in that case where she had to have an operation, you used it prior to the operation to support the system, post the operation to support the system. So it can be used in conjunction with modern medicine. I mean, in that case, it can. So that's something that people need to know, because I think a lot of people say, well, you can't use the two together, or the one doesn't work with the other.
They actually complement each other really well. And when I'm doing a consult, I always say to the owner, what medications is your dog currently on, and they'll list them, and I'll go away and actually do research on those, because as we all know, with medications there are normally side effects or things like that. So I want to take those side effects out of the equation, because that's not really the animal or the dog. So I remove that from the situation, so I'm seeing the real picture for that particular dog. But homeopathy in conjunction with conventional medicine is works very, very well. And I say to people, never remove your dog from any medication. I will work with the medication and will work around it. Because if you've had a dog that's been on medication for a while and you take it off, you're going to have problems. So I always say, never remove them. Talk to your vet about reducing, the dosage, or, and things like that. So I'm treating dogs that are on ADHD medication and things like that as well. We move the remedy as the dosage with their medication changes.
So
We're
that's
always
awesome.
balancing.
Have you seen that, Steph, where you can actually help them to come off medication and move on to homeopathy and sort of
Yes.
self-healing? So that's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And with one dog, we're at the point now where we'll just give her remedy once every couple of weeks. The owner can see her winding up. She now knows the signs, she knows the triggers. So that's been a whole learning curve for her as well. And the change in the dog and the owner has actually been amazing. And so we've been able to reduce the medication, and will fluctuate, with the dosage and the potency of the remedy to, sort of combat that, I guess. So that she's back in a nice healthy state again. So, and eventually I'm hoping that she won't need the remedy. We only really want to give the remedy for a very short time. Animals would, our animals don't need to be on the remedy forever. In some cases with dogs and arthritis, yes, they probably will be on the remedy for the rest of their lives. But again, as the dog ages and things change, so does the remedy. Yeah, which is beautiful. And then one day that particular remedy might not work. So then something's changed. So we need to find what's changed and then move the remedy accordingly. So it's a dance.
It is. I love that. It's a dance, and it's also, again, keeping in tune. And we know it's not a case of once you balance, okay, everything's fine and that's happily ever after. We know that for ourselves. This is the yin and yang of life. We go through these ups and downs, and we have these troughs and highs, etc. And each time it happens, our bodies can get out of balance for whatever reason, and we need to just support that. And that's kind of like in Western medicine, I would imagine, support through good health and good nutrition and exercise, fresh air, and boost your immune system. It's exactly the same with our dogs. We're on a path where we're constantly helping to support them through nutrition, etc., but also constantly seeing the little signs that we can say, right, this might help them to balance before it starts accumulating and getting.
And I think what I love about homeopathy too is that it empowers the owner to take responsibility. They can give medication, they can see, oh, that's happening, I'll give this remedy. And that's what I love. And they actually learn, that they learn what the dog needs, and they learn what remedies, and then they'll go, oh, this has changed, oh, what if I try that, and then they'll ring me and I'm like, yep, go with it, because they know their dog better than me. So, and I remember going to my vet one day saying, I don't know what's wrong, he just doesn't seem right. And my vet kind of looked at me, and I thought, well, how do you explain it? I knew in my gut something wasn't right. And I thought, oh, and he was like, yep, your dog, something's wrong. Let's break it down. And I was like, hallelujah, because I went in on a gut feeling. And so I think go with your gut, and your dog is telling you what they need. You just need to observe what they're trying to tell you.
So again, I love that, spending 10 minutes each day with your dog. Put your hands on your dog, stroke them, all parts of their body, so that you can feel when little bumps and lumps appear, where you could feel when something's different. Watch, when your dog is just in the evening licking himself, grooming. Where is he grooming, or is he licking a specific area? That's again and again. There's so many, as you said, there's so many clues, and the more we spend time just observing them and being present observing them, is when we're also going to get, as you say, that gut feeling. We will be more energetically connected to them, and we can start getting those gut feelings that say something's not right here, this doesn't feel right.
Well, it's interesting, because we are energetically tied to our dogs. They know when we're upset. They know when we're anxious, so we can actually tap into that as well. So we're just not perhaps open to it, or where the world's moving so fast, it's like, just stop, take 5 minutes, just sit and be with them. I hang out with Willow all the time, she just sits there, I sit there. I might do a little bit of Reiki if she lets me, and then that's our time, off we go.
Love it. Yeah, exactly. It's good for our health too. We know that, it's good for our health. It's good for our stress levels as well.
Yeah, it is.
We
Yeah.
just tap into each other, and that's what that's what I believe we have our dogs for anyway.
Oh, well, they're here to learn, we learn off them and they learn off us. And, Willow has taught me a lot about energy,
Yeah.
so she's very sensitive, and it's kind of like, oh, that's what you're here to teach me. So, yeah,
exactly.
it's interesting.
Yeah, I also have a sensitive dog who's taught me about sensitivity, because I wasn't not a very sensitive person. So yeah, for reals.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I always say to people, you get the dog that you need, not the dog that you want.
Exactly. Are you ready to look in the mirror?
I know, it's scary, isn't it? Well, it's funny because I really struggle. I can treat Willow acutely, but I can't get a constitutional remedy. And I'm kind of like, is that because I see a lot of me in her and I'm not ready to face that? So I'm kind of like,
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
last, I mean, I'm sure you've probably mentioned this, but just to ask you again, for instance, I know if I use Bach flower remedies on dogs, I often recommend that the person take the same remedy at the same time. Would you do the same?
Well, I mean, I guess it's up to them. And I have had a lot of anxious dog owners, and their dog is coming through as anxious as well. So I'm like, how about you just, take one for yourself and see what happens, because if it's not the right remedy, it's not going to do anything, And I think to some extent that gives the owner a bit of power over themselves as well, which is, and our dogs pick up on anxiousness or anything like that, and that comes through. I always say to people, the lead is an umbilical cord. What you're feeling is going straight into your dog. If you're anxious, you need to breathe through it. And meditation, breathing exercises. I mean, I'm like, whatever works for you, you need to do. You need to implement that, because that is flowing onto your dog. Yes, I can fix the anxiousness with homeopathy, but I'm not fixing the cause. So, and with animals, it is hard because you've got pack dynamics. And when I talk to people in consults, I do get a lot of personal information, and that's when it pieces together. Oh, okay, so this is why.
What's happening in the relationship, or the or in the home, or the pack, or the whatever.
Yeah. So it's actually really interesting.
I mean, there's so many dynamics living in a family. We're all different personalities, and we come with, as you say, our own baggage, our own whatever. So there's bound to be those sort of conflicts. And again,
there is. Yeah.
Brilliant
and
to
it's
know.
hard.
Brilliant to know that something like homeopathy can help with things like
that. It's I treat a lot of behavioral cases, and I'm like, yep, that's great, but you need to work on these things as well. And I will give owners homework. It's kind of like, it's owning a dog is a big responsibility, because you have got them for their life or your life. And I don't take that lightly, because I'm her carer, I'm her giver, I provide, everything for her. So it's a huge responsibility, and you've got to put the work in, what you put in is what you get out.
Exactly.
So it's, and the other thing I look at with consults is breed too, because people are like, oh, it barks, it's anxious. And I'm like, well, that is so common in the breed. I can't change the DNA makeup of the breed. So I can sort of diminish it and give them some tools and homeopathy around that. But this is what you signed up for when you took on that breed. And after owning Huskies, I know that more than anyone, this is what I didn't sign up for it. I just went and got a Husky because, I loved them.
They look cool.
I always wanted a Husky, so I went and got one. And then I got him home and went, yeah, I didn't do any research on that, did I? And I was like, heavens forbid. So he was a huge learning curve. But yeah, so it's, I don't think people, and now with mixed breeds, we're getting a lot of mixed, mixed DNA, mixed disorders, mixed, everything. So it's working through all that as well. So breed is quite a big component of homeopathy as well. And the parents, I always ask about the bitch and the sire, because things get passed down, and I want to know if people do know about the siblings in the pack as well. And with rescue dogs, it's I don't like to know too much of the history because it upsets me. But I know that they would have had some trauma, so I definitely, see that coming through in the consults as well. But it can also be how the owner is responding to that trauma. And sometimes I think when owners know the history, it can inhibit their healing through that as well. So
that's an interesting one. Yeah, I also, I've looked at that when and I think I was guilty of that myself when I got Charlie as a rescue dog. He also, you keep reliving their history. You keep saying, giving him a label. He's a rescue dog. He had a bad upbringing. He had trauma. He was knocked over by a truck, and you keep bringing that in, and you're not allowing him to
move on,
become somebody that he can and reach his potential, because we kind of keeping them in that poor me kind of state. Not consciously sometimes it's really subconscious, but we're not allowing them, as you say,
to move on. And all they're really asking for is they want to move on, because dogs are in the moment. We're the ones holding them back, reliving, well, we don't know what happened, so let's make up a story, kind of thing. And when I got my 2-year-old, I was her 4th rehome, so she had major issues. And I was a bad dog owner, I'll admit, and I was making excuses for her behavior. And I ended up getting a dog trainer around to help me. And basically, I had a decision to make: either give her up to someone who could help her, or put on my big girl pants, get over it, and be a leader. So I put on the big girl pants, and I had her for 13 beautiful years. And she was the best dog I ever had once I got over her trauma. She'd already moved on, and she was like, this home's awesome, I run the roof and I can do whatever, and she doesn't care. And I was like, wow, you are so not controlling the situation.
It is. So it's fascinating, and that's why, again, we're talking about all these different dynamics that can play into that, and that's why it's that individual. And we can't just be blanketing them with all sorts of things. And that's why I love the homeopathy, as you say, because there's thousands of different remedies.
Oh, there is,
And trying to find the right one for that dog.
And I'm just, of the thought, if you see something, then the dog is showing you that it needs to be looked at. So don't shy away from it. No. Deal with it. And then they've moved on, and then that you can move on as well.
Correct.
And it's sort of it's if you see something that's not right, deal with it, because if you don't, it's going to come up, but it's going to be worse.
It's either going to get worse, or it's going to come out somewhere else. If we put a lid on that way, it's going to come out somewhere else.
Exactly. And even worse. And for Willow, I want her to live a happy life. I want her to be out there running around, and she's 8 years old and she hoons around like an idiot, and everyone's like, oh, she a puppy, and I'm like, no, she's 8. And they're like, wow. And she's my homeopathy baby.
Exactly. This is what a happy balanced dog looks like. And it doesn't mean they don't have health issues from time to time. It doesn't mean that they don't have behavior issues from time to time. But that's just it. It goes through these cycles, and we help them to balance again, and that's where they are.
Exactly. And I'm kind of well, it's quite funny, because when I got her, she was at the SPCA, which is our rescue shelter, for 6 months. And I went to get her sister, but my other dog picked her, so I ended up with her. And the next day, I'd only had her for a night, and I took her out in the forest where I used to walk my other dogs. We went out in the pack, and I let her off lead, and people were like, oh my God. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm like, what? She's either going to stay with the pack or she's not. She's got a choice. And I said, she's not going to give up the pack
to go be on her own. Exactly. In the big wide world.
And she was like, oh my God, I'm free. But the poor girl had run around so much, she actually tore one of her shoulder ligaments, because she'd never been free. She'd never had, so that was another homeopathy experience with her, treating her for that.
Learning curve, tick.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, that was an epic fail on my part, wasn't it? But she had fun.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Stephanie, this has been such an awesome conversation. I really, really thank you so much for coming on, and for sharing all your knowledge and your experience, and everything that homeopathy can do for us. So yes, and I look forward to working with you in the future. And everybody, again, if you'd like to get hold of Steph, her details will be below here. And yes, thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome.
It's been a real pleasure having you on, and I look forward to working with you going forward.
You too. Thanks, Sue.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Bye.